Beetlejuice the Musical is a clear example of how a musical can survive if it resonates with its fans. Recently, a second national tour started with a whole new cast, and I was not expecting what I saw. Today, I will give in my full review of this show and take all my words with a grain of salt. These are just my opinions, so if you thought about the show in a different manner, and that's totally fine, I would also love to hear in the comments below your thoughts on this new tour if you've already seen it. With that out of the way, I was very lucky to have the chance to see this show on opening night at the San Diego Civic Theater. This tour has a brand new non-equity cast, and this was the second time I saw this show. The first one being in 2023, when the first tour started alongside Isabella Esler and Justin Collette. So I was wondering how this cast would compare. This musical is an adaptation of the Tim Burton movie Beetlejuice, starring Michael Keaton, and tells the story of a demon by the same name and his desire to return to life. Still, he needs a living person to say his name 3 times in order for that to happen. That's when Lydia and the rest of the deeds enter the story. This musical retains the main plot while adapting it to a stage. The book of this musical focuses more on Lydia and her desire to get his mom back to life, or at least see her for the last time. Beetlejuice, while also being a lead, deserves more of a comedic relief and a vessel for the story to continue its natural course. The pace, I would say, it's well balanced in the first act, while the second act feels a little bit rushed. The song's balance between first and second act also feels weird, since the first act seems more music heavy than the latter. I would say this also depends on you to at least know a little bit about what Beetlejuice is about, to understand the characters and plot that happens in the second act, especially going to the underworld. This new national tour has a brand new cast. The leads are Leianna Weaver, a San Diegan herself as Lydia, and Ryan Stajmiger as Beetlejuice. I want to start with Leianna. This musical relies heavily on Lydia and her vocals, especially in heavy songs like Dead Mom and Home. So it was interesting to know how I knew Lydia would perform and if it was going to bring something new to the table. Something to keep in mind is the little time this ensemble has worked together, starting the tour just a few days ago on February the 13th. Saying that, Leianna does not disappoint at all. Starting with the prelude, you can see how powerful her vocals are. Something to point out as well is that she was coming back home, being a San Diegan, so this opening was special for her in a lot of ways. While watching her performance, a version of the original Lydia, Sophia Ann Caruso, was in my mind due to the mannerisms, vocal cues, and overall performance, which made me think of that. This is not at all bad, considering how loved that version of Lydia was. I was impressed by Dead Mom. You can hear the potential that Leianna has throughout the whole show. And at the end, you can see the excitement and pride of her being back in San Diego. And now let's talk about Beetlejuice. This character has something that will always be an issue for whoever gets to perform him, and that's the voice. When Alex Bryman was creating the character, due to an injury he had on his vocal cords, he can produce a sound that, on a normal person, could be hurtful and difficult. Coincidentally, that sound is like a demon, and that's exactly what he used to create the stage version of Beetlejuice. After Alex Bryman stopped being the lead, the replacement, which was Justin Collette, had to come up with his version of how Beetlejuice would sound. To his advantage, he was no stranger to Alex Bryman, since back on School of Rock, he was the understudy of Alex. This would eventually help him with the making of his version of Beetlejuice. This time, we have a brand new actor as the lead, Ryan Stajmiger. Ryan is no stranger to Broadway musicals, having worked in productions such as Frozen, School of Rock, Little Shop of Horrors, and many more. I was really excited to hear how this version would sound, given that Beetlejuice is known to be this funny character that breaks the fourth wall and improvises a lot. I was kind of let down when that rarely happened, having jokes from the original book, such as with the Jason Derulo line that feels a little bit dated. Also, at the beginning, no joke or reference was made about San Diego during the whole Being Dead thing number. If I'm not mistaken, when Justin Collette came to San Diego on 2023, he did start with a joke about San Diego itself. I understand that mastering a character like Beetlejuice will take time, and you could see that, including moments where the voice would change from scene to scene, given the difficulty of this character. But with that, I must say he's a good Beetlejuice as well. The chemistry between Leianna and him is a good one, and it's something that will always be important in this story to be effective. Of course, being a new cast, this means we also have a new Barbara, Delia, and Adam. Personally, Barbara was my second favorite character in this cast. The actress behind her is Caitlin Philly. And every time Barbara showed up, you could see she was having so much fun on stage, and with a musical like Beetlejuice, that's something that will matter a lot. This is a funny show that needs to have that laid-back feeling while also being funny. And now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I love the music, I love the orchestra. I've had different interviews with different musical directors that's been on tour, so I want to talk about the score. One of the most important things on musicals is how the cast recording translates to the live version. Of course, given that the cast on tour is rarely the same one on the cast recording, much of the work will be on the orchestra itself. This time, the music director is Charlie Yoko, who previously worked on Elf the Musical and the Sound of Music Global Tour. The score of Beetlejuice is also a tricky one due to the whimsiness of the Tim Burton aesthetic. And overall, I will say that this is how you would expect the score to sound like. Every musical interlude sounded amazing, and even sounds pre-recorded. I was having this discussion with my friend since many times it sounded pre-recorded, but of course it was being played live. If something would need to be fixed, what's the balance between music and microphones? With some microphones, there were times where the music was louder than the voice, and this would of course affect the overall sound of the piece. And with songs as amazing in Beetlejuice, this does affect the overall experience. Here is where I want to mention that the opening night was delayed for a few minutes. I think it was around 20 minutes in total due to tech issues. These tech issues were never explained, so it could have been issues with the mic and the sound. But that's being picky. In reality, the music is as good as you could expect, and if you love the cast recording, you will love it live. One of the things I've always liked about the stage design is how dynamic it is. Normally, stage design focuses on being simplistic but effective. But this time, this is not the case. You get the inside of the house, the roof where Say My Name happens, the attic, the bedroom, the underworld. So as you can see, a lot of places. This means that in some scenes, the stage gets divided by a curtain and only half the stage is used to show the scene. And also, sometimes the characters gets in front of the curtain while the scene is being changed in the background. This is done brilliantly, where it could go unnoticed by the normal eye. Overall, I think this musical, if I had to rank it from 1 to 5, I would say it's around a 4.2. It's a good show, but can definitely have some improvements. As I mentioned earlier, this cast has only been together for a couple of weeks, so that was something to be expected. But if you would ask me as well, for whom is this musical? It's kind of weird, because at this point in the life cycle of Beetlejuice, it's hard to say for whom it is. On one part, this is already a fan favorite, especially with the younger audience that grew up alongside the musical during the 2020 pandemic, while also being for a general audience since this musical is easy to digest, with a very straightforward story, especially if you've seen the Beetlejuice the movie at least once. Would I recommend the show? Yeah, I mean, definitely. This is still one of my favorite top 10 musicals of all time that I've seen live. I love how whimsical it is, how the aesthetic of it all, colors, set design, clothing, it all works just in the perfect way. This cast is also really good, especially considering that they are just starting, as I mentioned earlier. If you see them later on this tour, I have no doubt it will be way better. But overall, I had a really nice time, a really nice night. Thank you, Broadway San Diego, for bringing this awesome show. My friend and I, we were so happy after having watching it. We were still singing the songs in the car, talking about it. It was just such a good night. So this was my review of this musical. Right now I'm working on my next video as well. The upcoming musical here in San Diego, it's gonna be the Notebook musical that will happen on April 14th, starting April 14th. So I'm making the story of it all. It's a pretty interesting story, especially how personal it is to Ingrid Michaelson. So expect that video in the upcoming weeks, and that will be all on my end. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching this video. My name is Joel Casillas, and I'll see you behind the anchor.